A crossover between Avataro Sentai Donbrothers and Kikai Sentai Zenkaiger has been anticipated ever since it was revealed the two of them would share similar aesthetics and characters, and after a long wait, the two teams have finally united. Hello everyone, it's thomasjujube, and before I talk about Avataro Sentai Donbrothers victory versus Zenkaiger, be sure to comment below what you thought of this movie or set of episodes that happened to, this is a weird one. Let me know what you thought. Spoilers, of course, for everything in regards to these seasons. I knew going in that this was going to be taking on the older Kamen Rider movie war format, where the two series get individual episode-length storylines before physically crossing over and interacting in the final act of the movie. So it's not like it was a big shock to me, but I will say it's probably my biggest problem with the movie. Let's start with Zenkaiger. It was basically just a normal episode of Zenkaiger. A random world invades and causes silliness. The Zenkaigers create an even sillier plan to defeat it. Crazy hijinks ensue, and the monster's defeated, and everything goes back to normal. Since Zenkaiger is my favorite season of Super Sentai, I had absolutely no problem with that. It's almost like a best hits version of Zenkaiger, the way it brings back pretty much all the elements from the original season I loved, and then some. Like, the whole plot is just because people go crazy for Kashiwamochi, it turns Zox into a pirate ruling the world. Kaito's dad somehow turns back into a cyborg. Well, he is a cyborg. Somehow the armor just reappears because he is so hungry for food. It's so ridiculous, but it's just classic Zenkaiger fun. Then to save the day, the gang puts on some silly costumes and becomes drug dealers of Kashiwamochi. And then Majin gets a big coat, which is really adorable. And she also brings back her classic Nununu Majinu attack. And then less than 5 minutes into the whole thing, she has to be a hungry gal, and she kind of sets the plot into motion, because that's what gets like the cops involved, and then they have to go out and they meet Zox. Hi Majin. I do wonder why Kashiwamochi World was chosen to be this final Zenkaiger villain. I guess he was popular enough in the one episode he was in Zenkaiger, they decided to bring him back. It doesn't really matter because it probably would have not changed anything if they had a new monster. There's also like fun meta jokes like that as well, where Majin mentions that the artificial world monsters repeat their motifs like the actual ones in the show, so maybe that was a whole joke. There's also a moment where the gear misses Kaito during the transformation, which once again is a joke, is like straight out of Zenkaiger, just making that like a real part of the world. The only thing that I found missing was some kind of Sentai gear usage, since that was pretty much in every episode of Zenkaiger, no matter the role it played in the episode, so it's a little disappointing we didn't get something like that here. Another part of the story I really enjoyed, it might seem small, but this acknowledges the Zenkaiger versus Kiramager versus Senpaiger movie. It's explicitly said that the replica Kashiwamochi was a replica made by that movie's villain, and we explicitly see that in a flashback. And then the other villain of that movie makes a cameo appearance, redeemed, serving Stacy as the Kikaitopia ruler. Stacy as the Kikaitopia ruler and that villain getting redemption were two plots started in that previous crossover, and they carry over here. Usually these crossovers are completely self-contained, and that's fine, but to have brief references and just one of the main villains straight up reappear in a minor role is pretty unprecedented, I think. I don't think that really ever happens. Like, the main villain coming back is mind-blowing to me. And that ties together the whole Zenkaiger portion for me. While I do love that this feels like a missing episode of Zenkaiger, I also love the moments that show so much has changed since the beginning of the season, like Stacy casually fighting to protect Kaito, or the team traversing through the multiverse that they've saved for their help in order to save their world. Like it or not, this is probably going to be the last time we see all these characters together for some time, so I love that this manages to capture the spirit of Zenkaiger as that goofy Sentai comedy, but is also a beautiful last hurrah for my favorite team of Super Sentai goofballs. Hi Majin. If you're new and you'd like to hear my thoughts on the entirety of Zenkaiger and why I love that show so much, I will link my season review in the description, along with some extra Zenkaiger content, my Donbrothers content, and my unboxing of the sword that is featured in this movie. Speaking of Donbrothers, I did not enjoy their portion of this movie as much, and it's partially because I like Zenkaiger more, but while the Zenkaiger portion kind of lets loose a bit it, and it's just a fun celebration of that show and characters. The Donbrothers portion does have a little bit more focus on the story, much like the actual season, and this is like our first time seeing them after the end of that show, so it does make sense, but the things it does feel downright insulting to some of these characters. First of all, Taro gets his memories back immediately, and it's not because of some crazy monster thing or like reverse amnesia. I don't think that's a thing. Master is just like, oh yeah, it's about that time for the emotional core of the final arc in our season to be undone for plot reasons. So now Taro's back to normal, and we just go back to normal like that. Okay. I do think it's interesting that because of how Donbrothers was as a season, there was no big boss really. It's just Hitosuki would come and go. So Hitosuki are still coming and going. We're just looking at how the team's lives have changed a bit, as lives tend to change after some time. I especially like that Tsubasa and Sononi have set up a little bakery together. Don Murasame is working for Master at the cafe. That actually might be my favorite part. And Sonoi works at the noodle cart, which shows how much he's grown from being a Noto, seeking to end human lives. Now he's serving up delicious food for them. But I really don't like what they did with Jiro. It is really cool to actually see him be a team leader like Donbrothers was kind of building up to, but I hate that he has this rivalry with Sonoi. I hate that they said he's paying for all the Donbrothers' lives. Well, I don't hate that. I hate that they say that the Donbrothers are only fighting with him so they can keep the money for their lives. It just feels gross. Like, just say they earned that, or just say Jiro's helping them because they were all friends and he managed to get all of this money. And then they don't really, like, acknowledge it. Like, it's just like, they just kind of move on. They're like, oh, I guess we'll work with Taro and we're gonna lose all this money that we've helped them set up new lives. Jiro is not really punished for that. We don't really see Jiro get, like have a change of heart because of that. It's just, like, quickly swept under the rug. I guess the basic thing they do to make it feel like he learns his lesson is Sonoi shows up at the end fight to fight Don Doragoku, but like amidst all of this action, we're all fighting these bad guys. Sonoi, you're gonna fight your teammate? It is so stupid. It feels really out of character for him as well. So then at the end of the movie, we see the team basically reverted to the way they were at the end of the show, which is just more boring to me. It was nice to see they had growth, actual change, and they straight up say that like Tsubasa was happiest being on the run, to the point he quits the bakery and puts up wanted posters. He puts up his own wanted posters of him to run off with Sononi. I do not understand how that is supposed to be a satisfying conclusion for that set of characters. Taro also dies again. It's like, we've seen this multiple times in the show in more interesting ways. This time it was like he got unlucky. I thought it was a joke at first because it was so absurd it happened in the first place. And then I like the callback to Sonoi reviving him, but then the movie ends on a note of Sonoi being dead. And I assume we'll focus on this in the next crossover movie, since it seems like we have crossover movie continuity now. But it just leaves this movie on an unsatisfying note. He's like barely in the movie and then he gets killed. And then being unsatisfying does lead into my biggest problem with the whole film, and it's shown when the two teams actually meet up. See, Donbrothers was first announced as a pseudo-sequel to Zenkaiger. Toei was like, look, for the first time the heroes are carrying over. By heroes, they just meant a version of Kaito and a mechanized Jurdan, but we also had gears and the guns based on past Sentai again, the same mecha system, and then in the actual season, Sentai gears return, and we do have a Zenkaiser. Now, over the course of the show, these elements did start to slowly drop off, as Zenkaiser Black was just another part of the cast, and as I mentioned in my Donbrothers review, I didn't really mind this. It was cool that Donbrothers was able to do its own things and didn't have to be a sequel to Zenkaiger. So when a movie crossover between the two teams was announced, okay, this is the perfect place to address the connections between the two teams, since, I mean, they're literally together now. So the Zenkaigers recognized Don Momotaro since he got summoned to fight alongside them, but during the end of Zenkaiger, I was really wondering if there would be a reason why the Donbrothers gear made by Kaito's dad was so unique, or like, why did he make this gear only now? And then during Donbrothers, I was wondering why this completely other team of Sentai were using designs created by Kaito's parents, and it's not brought up even once, not even as a gag. Hey, we both use gear teams. Why is that? I don't know. Alright, let's keep fighting. Nope, none of that. And I kind of think this drags down my opinion on Donbrothers as a season, since they were very in your face about the Sentai gears and collecting them as Avataro gears in the initial episodes of the season, and it turns out that just doesn't matter. It's just, why was that happening? I don't know. I will admit though, I did like the joke about Kaito and Master just being two different people example. That like that is an actual answer to me, because I was just wondering if they were the same person or not. And I like that they answered that, but they still kept the joke about him just being this nameless person that is the true hero of the Donbrothers dimension. The actual crossover part is also disappointing. It almost feels like an obligation because all of a sudden the two teams just end up in the same area during their boss fights and decide to work together. And then the interactions they have during the fights are cute, but it's just like a couple lines of dialogue. I wanted a whole movie of that. I know they tried a different style here with the two plot lines, but that is just not what this kind of crossover is to me. Like, I hated when Kamen Rider did it, and I don't like it here either. I would have preferred if they were teamed up for the entire film. And there's not even like jangly key superficial moments. Zenkaiger is a season famous for its over-the-top roll calls. Donbrothers is a season famous for not doing roll calls. There's some joke you can make there. No, let's just have them all do the roll call at once and they just kind of wipe over it. Like, I wanted to see them do something. For some reason, most of the Donbrothers team is missing, so even those 2-second interactions at the end are missing for characters like Stacy. When there's two rivals in Donbrothers, they literally brought back Zenkaiger for this movie, to the point where we have two purple rivals and two pseudo ranger rivals with strong connections to the leader. None of these interactions happen. We get Stacy and Zenkaiger again. We got that in Zenkaiger. I didn't really need to see it again. They also brought back Kaito's dad as Zenkaiger when he's the one who made the Donbrothers gear and the rest of the Sentai gear system, and once again they just chose to not do anything interesting with that. Like, hey, why do you guys have the system that I developed? Nope. Speaking of gears, as we know, both teams use variants of Sentai gears. We could have had a moment where a Zenkaiger uses a Sentai gear power alongside a Donbrother transforming into that ranger. The Donbrothers use Dynaman because it's their 40th anniversary, I guess, and as mentioned, no Sentai gears are used in this movie besides the transformation ones, of course. We do get a new toy. I usually don't care like about the random toy. Like, I get it shows up, we have to sell something in the final battle, and I actually do really like Master just has it because that's very in line with Donbrothers. But by this point in the movie, it's just incredibly disappointing to have a new toy pop up for a couple slashes, a quick finisher, and that's that. At the very least, the forms are pretty neat. I like the armor swaps, and I like the sword a lot, actually. It's really cool, and it was enough to convince me to pre-order it and buy a bunch of other Donbrothers toys, which you can see in my latest unboxing. Okay, well, that shot is pretty cool. Yeah, I don't hate this movie. I like seeing the Zenkaigers again and interact with the Donbrothers, since again, these are 2 seasons I really enjoyed. I don't think I really had high anticipation. I just wanted to see these two teams interact at the very least, and at the most get some kind of explanation for the similarities, and I didn't really get either of them. This really wasn't the movie I wanted for the only meeting between the Zenkaiger and Donbrothers. If you did enjoy this format though, please let me know down in the comment section. I'd love to know if your thoughts are the same or different from mine. Check out those other videos I keep mentioning. Become a patron if you'd like early access to those videos as well, or just subscribe to the channel, and I hope to see you next time.